Mom's death left us with a huge estate, but my greedy cousin rushed to court, claiming she promised everything to me. My family looked defeated until I pulled out a handwritten letter and said, "Then you must have forgotten this." The judge read it, looked up, and said, "This changes everything." My cousin's smirk vanished, and she screamed, "That can't be real." I never thought my family would be the kind to tear itself apart over money, but I guess grief does strange things to people. My mom had just passed away. Cancer. It was slow, painful, and watching her fade had been the hardest thing I'd ever gone through. The only comfort we had was that she left behind a solid estate, her house, savings, and a few investments. Nothing crazy, but enough to give my brother and me a good start in life. But of course, money attracts vultures. Enter my cousin, Rachel. Rachel had always been one of those people who talked big, acted like she was the main character in every situation, and somehow convinced herself that she was smarter than everyone else. My mom had been close to her once, but over the years, she started seeing Rachel for what she really was, a manipulative, self-serving liar. The kind of person who'd hug you in public and steal from you in private. When Mom passed, Rachel showed up at the funeral looking devastated. She clung to my arm, sobbing like she had just lost her own mother. I wanted to believe she was being genuine, but something about it felt off. I was right to be suspicious. Less than a week after the funeral, we were served with legal papers. Rachel was suing for the entire estate, claiming that my mother had promised everything to her. That's right, everything. The house, the savings, the investments. She was saying that my mom had always loved her like a daughter and had verbally assured her that she would inherit it all. I thought it was a joke at first. A sick, cruel joke. But it wasn't. Rachel had somehow convinced a lawyer to take on her case. Her argument? That my mother had verbally promised her everything and that we, her actual children, were mistaken in thinking we were the rightful heirs. My brother and I were in shock. We didn't even know how to respond. Mom had been clear in her will. Everything was to be split evenly between my brother and me. Rachel wasn't mentioned anywhere. But Rachel wasn't backing down. She stood in court with her lawyer, confidently telling the judge that my mother had changed her mind before she passed, that she had spoken to Rachel privately, and that she had instructed her to take over everything. Her smirk said it all. She thought she had already won. My brother and I sat there, watching as our family's future was ripped apart by lies. Our lawyer tried to fight back, arguing that the will was legally binding and that there was no evidence of any promises being made to Rachel. But Rachel's lawyer twisted every argument around, making it seem like my mother had been secretly planning to leave everything to Rachel, but had simply never gotten around to updating the paperwork. The judge was listening carefully, his expression unreadable. I could feel the tension in the room. My family members who had shown up, distant aunts, uncles, even a few family friends, looked uncomfortable. Some of them were whispering to each other, exchanging glances. No one knew what to believe anymore. And that's when I pulled out the letter. I had been waiting for the right moment. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Then you must have forgotten this," I said, my voice calm but firm. Rachel's smirk faltered. The judge took the letter and opened it. He read through it slowly, his eyes narrowing as he processed the words. Then he looked up and said, "This changes everything." Rachel's face went pale. "That can't be real," she shrieked. But it was real. The letter was handwritten by my mother, addressed to me and my brother. It was dated just a month before she passed. In it, she specifically stated that she had no intention of leaving anything to Rachel. She wrote about how she had once trusted Rachel but had seen her true colors over the years. She warned us to be careful because she suspected Rachel might try something after she was gone. The room was dead silent. Rachel lunged forward like she was going to grab the letter, but the bailiff was already stepping in. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. I wasn't done. I had one more thing up my sleeve. And this? This was going to destroy her. Rachel looked like she had been slapped. Her face twisted in fury as the judge handed the letter to our lawyer to verify its authenticity. My brother and I stayed quiet, watching her unravel. "That's a fake," Rachel shouted, her voice shaking. "They made that up. My aunt would never." The judge held up a hand, silencing her. He wasn't playing around. "Miss Carter, you will have your chance to respond after we verify the document." Rachel's lawyer, who had been full of confidence minutes ago, suddenly looked nervous. He turned to whisper something to her, but she was too busy glaring at me. I didn't take my eyes off her. I wanted her to see that I wasn't scared of her. The letter was passed to a handwriting expert who had been brought in for the case. I watched as he examined it carefully, comparing it to other known documents my mother had signed. The whole courtroom was holding its breath. Then he looked up. "This letter is authentic," he said. Rachel let out a strangled sound, half scream, half growl. She slammed her hands on the table. "No, this is a setup. They're framing me." My aunt told me herself. That's enough, Miss Carter, the judge said sharply. You will conduct yourself properly in this courtroom. I could see it now, Rachel was losing it. She wasn't just upset, she was panicking. And I knew why. She had been so sure she could walk in here, spin her lies, and walk out with my mother's estate. She never expected us to fight back. I should have felt satisfied, but something about her reaction was bothering me. It was too intense, even for her. And then I saw it, the slight shake in her hands, the way her breathing was shallow and uneven. Rachel wasn't just scared. She was hiding something. And I was about to find out exactly what it was. After a brief recess, we were called back into the courtroom. My lawyer leaned over and whispered. Rachel's lawyer asked for a private discussion with the judge. We don't know why. That wasn't a good sign. I glanced at my brother, who looked just as confused as I felt. We took our seats again, and this time, the judge's expression was unreadable. But before he could speak, Rachel's lawyer stood up. His face was pale, and he wouldn't look at her. Your Honor, he said slowly, my client would like to withdraw her claim. My jaw nearly hit the floor. Rachel jerked up. What? No, I didn't. Her lawyer cut her off. Miss Carter, sit down. Rachel refused. She turned wild eyes to the judge. He doesn't speak for me. I'm not withdrawing anything. This estate is mine. The judge let out a heavy sigh, like he had seen this 100 times before. He nodded to the bailiff, who immediately stepped forward. Miss Carter, if you do not sit down and respect court procedures, you will be removed from the courtroom. That shut her up. She clenched her jaw and dropped back into her seat, fuming. I leaned in toward my lawyer and whispered, what the hell just happened? He frowned. I don't know, but something scared that lawyer badly. Rachel's lawyer looked like he wanted to be anywhere but here. Your Honor, I'd like to request a brief meeting in your chambers. The judge considered for a moment, then nodded. Very well. We'll reconvene shortly. And just like that, the judge, Rachel's lawyer, and our lawyer disappeared into his chambers. Rachel's knee was bouncing under the table. I could practically feel the rage rolling off her. But there was something else to fear. I was about to whisper something to my brother when he nudged me and subtly pointed to Rachel. I followed his gaze and saw it. Her hands were shaking. Not just from anger. From something deeper. Rachel was terrified. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 30. By the time the judge and lawyers returned, my stomach was in knots. I kept glancing at my brother, who looked just as on edge as I felt. The judge cleared his throat. After discussing new information brought to my attention, I am making the following ruling. Rachel was sitting rigid, gripping the table so tightly her knuckles had gone white. I am dismissing Miss Carter's claim to the estate. The original will stand as legally binding. There was a murmur through the courtroom, but my focus was on Rachel. She had gone still, her eyes wide, her lips parted like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. I had expected her to explode again, to throw another tantrum, but instead, she looked defeated. That's when the judge looked directly at her. Additionally, due to new evidence presented, further legal action is being considered. Rachel finally snapped out of her frozen state. What? What does that mean? The judge didn't answer. Instead, he turned to our lawyer. You may proceed with the next steps as you see fit. Our lawyer nodded. Understood, Your Honor. Rachel whipped around to her own lawyer, but he was already gathering his things. What the hell is going on? She hissed at him. The man sighed, rubbing his temples. Then, in the quietest voice, he said, They know. Rachel's entire body jerked. No, she whispered. I felt my breath catch. No what? Rachel's lawyer shot her a look that could have cut glass. You lied to me, Rachel. You left out some very important details. Then he turned on his heel and walked out, leaving her completely alone. My brother and I exchanged a glance. Something huge had just been uncovered. And whatever it was about to ruin Rachel. Rachel sat there, frozen, staring at the door her lawyer had just walked out of. The courtroom was dead silent except for the quiet murmuring of a few people in the back. My brother and I weren't saying anything, but we both knew something big had just happened behind those closed doors. And whatever it was, Rachel knew exactly what it meant. Her whole body was tense, her fingers gripping the edge of the table so hard her nails were digging into the wood. She looked like she wanted to run but didn't know where to go. Then, out of nowhere, she grabbed her purse and bolted. The bailiff reacted instantly. Miss Carter, you need to stay in the courtroom. Rachel ignored him. She was halfway to the door when another bailiff stepped in front of her. You're not going anywhere, he said firmly. She looked up at him, chest heaving, and for the first time since this whole thing started, she looked scared. The judge sighed and rubbed his forehead. Miss Carter, sit down. Rachel didn't move at first. She was trapped, and she knew it. Slowly, she turned around and walked back to her seat, but the confidence was gone. She wasn't smirking anymore. She wasn't yelling. She was silent. And that's when I realized Rachel wasn't just scared. She was caught. After the courtroom settled down, the judge turned to our lawyer. "You may proceed." Our lawyer stood and adjusted his tie. He glanced at Rachel before turning to the judge. "Your Honor, we'd like to present additional evidence that has come to light." Rachel's head snapped up. "What? What evidence?" Her voice cracked a little. Our lawyer ignored her. He walked to the evidence table, where a thick manila folder was waiting. He picked it up, pulled out a stack of papers, and handed them to the judge. The judge flipped through them slowly. His expression didn't change at first, but after a few pages, his eyebrows lifted slightly. By the time he reached the last few, he let out a heavy sigh and closed the folder. He looked up at Rachel, his eyes sharp. "Miss Carter," he said slowly, "do you have anything to say for yourself?" Rachel's lips parted, but no words came out. The silence stretched. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Then the judge turned to the bailiff. "Please escort Miss Carter into custody for further questioning." Rachel shot up. "What?" The courtroom exploded. People gasped. My brother whispered, "Holy SH," under his breath. I just sat there stunned. Rachel spun toward me, her face red with panic. "You did this. You set me up." I stood up, my hands flat on the table. "I didn't do anything, Rachel. You did this to yourself." The bailiff grabbed her arm, but she tried to yank away. "No, this isn't fair. I didn't do anything wrong." The judge cleared his throat loudly. "Miss Carter, I suggest you stop talking." She did, but only because she had no choice. As she was led out of the courtroom, her eyes darted around wildly, like she was looking for someone, anyone, to save her. But no one did. Not even her own family. The second she was gone, I turned to my lawyer. "What the hell was that?" He took a deep breath, then slid the folder toward me. I opened it, and the second I saw the first page, my stomach dropped. It was a bank statement. From an account in my mother's name. A bank account none of us even knew existed. And the transactions? Tens of thousands of dollars. All withdrawn over the last year. All funneled into an account under a different name. I flipped to the next page. Another statement. Then another. Then a signed withdrawal slip with my mother's forged signature. The handwriting was similar, but not perfect. Close enough that someone might not notice unless they were really looking. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. She was stealing from my mom. My brother leaned over, his face pale. "Holy crap." Our lawyer nodded. "It appears Miss Carter had access to your mother's accounts and was draining money over time. We only found out when an investigator uncovered the missing funds and tracked where they were going." I swallowed hard. Where were they going? Our lawyer pulled out one last paper and placed it in front of us. It was a lease. For a luxury apartment. In Rachel's name. My brother let out a low whistle. She used Mom's money to pay for her own damn apartment? She did more than that, our lawyer said grimly. She was also using it for vacations, shopping, and, he hesitated, flipping through a few more pages. Large cash withdrawals. We don't know where all of it went yet. I closed my eyes, rage bubbling up in my chest. Rachel hadn't just been greedy. She had been robbing my mother while she was dying. And then, after my mother passed, she had the audacity to try and steal everything else. I gritted my teeth. She wasn't planning on winning this case. My brother frowned. "What do you mean?" I looked down at the papers again. She just needed to buy herself time. If she got control of the estate, even for a little while, she could have liquidated everything and disappeared before anyone figured this out. My brother let out a slow breath. "That's why she freaked out." I nodded. Because she knew the second we found out the truth, she was done. Rachel thought she could get away with it. She thought she was smarter than everyone else. But she forgot one thing. The truth always comes out. And this? This was far from over. Rachel had stolen from my dying mother. She had drained her accounts, forged her signature, and used the money to fund her own lifestyle. And when my mother passed, she had the audacity to try and take the rest. But now? Now, she was caught. The courtroom was still buzzing as people whispered among themselves, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Some of my relatives looked shocked, others furious. A few, ones who had always believed Rachel's lies, just sat there, stunned into silence. Rachel was gone now, taken into custody for questioning. But this wasn't over. Not even close. I turned to my brother, my jaw tight. "She's going to jail for this, right?" Our lawyer sighed, running a hand down his face. "It depends. Right now, they're investigating. But with the evidence we have," he tapped the folder, still thick with bank statements and forged documents, "she's in serious trouble." I wanted to feel victorious. I wanted to celebrate the fact that justice was being served. But all I felt was exhaustion. This wasn't just some greedy distant relative trying to take what wasn't hers. This was someone we grew up with. Someone who had spent holidays at our house, sat at our dinner table, called my mother, Auntie, like she actually cared about her. And the whole time, she had been planning this. My stomach turned. How long has she been stealing from Mom? Our lawyer flipped through a few pages. It looks like the earliest suspicious transactions were about a year before your mother passed. He hesitated. Around the time she first got diagnosed. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. She had started stealing as soon as my mom got sick. Rachel had taken one look at my mother, the woman who had helped raise her, who had treated her like a daughter, and thought, this is my chance. I clenched my fists. I want her charged. I want everything pressed against her. My brother nodded. Me too. Our lawyer gave us a small, understanding nod. That's exactly what we're going to do. The confrontation a week passed. Rachel had been released on bail, but her case was just getting started. The evidence was overwhelming. The bank fraud alone could put her away for years. I thought she'd keep her head down, maybe even try to disappear. But instead, she showed up at our mother's house. Our house now. I was in the kitchen when I heard the knock. My brother was out, and for a second, I thought maybe it was another family member stopping by to check in. But when I opened the door and saw her standing there, my blood ran cold. Rachel looked nothing like the smug, arrogant woman in the courtroom. Her hair was a mess, her face pale, dark circles under her eyes. But what really stood out was the sheer desperation in her expression. She shoved past me into the house before I could stop her. We need to talk. I spun around, my anger boiling over. Get the hell out of my house. She ignored me, pacing back and forth, running her hands through her hair. You don't understand. This is all a mistake. She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. It's all gotten out of control. I shut the door, stepping toward her. A mistake? You stole from my mother, Rachel. You forged her name, drained her accounts. I had no choice, she snapped, whipping around to face me. Her eyes were wild, filled with something between rage and desperation. You think I wanted to do this? You think I just woke up one day and decided to screw over my own family? Yes, I said coldly. She flinched. For a split second, she looked guilty. Then the mask slipped back on. I needed the money. I scoffed. For what, Rachel? A luxury apartment? Shopping? Vacations? She bit her lip, hesitating. And that's when I realized there was something else. I folded my arms. What are you telling me? She shook her head, looking away. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. What matters is that you have to help me. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Help you? She stepped closer. You can make this all go away. Just drop the charges. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Say Mom did give me the money, my hands curled into fists. No, her face twisted with fury. You don't get it. I'll lose everything. If this goes to trial, she stopped herself. But it was too late. Because I heard it in her voice. The fear, the panic. And suddenly it clicked. Rachel wasn't just scared of jail. She was scared of someone else. I took a step forward, my voice lowering. Who are you in trouble with, Rachel? Her mouth opened and closed like she wanted to deny it. Then she broke. Tears welled up in her eyes. Her shoulders started shaking. She covered her face with her hands, sucking in a sharp, shuddering breath. I had never seen Rachel cry like this before. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I saw her for what she really was. Not just a thief. Not just a liar. But someone who was in way over their head. I sighed, rubbing a hand down my face. You need to tell me everything. The aftermath. Rachel confessed that she had been borrowing money from people, dangerous people. She had made bad investments, racked up massive debts, and when she ran out of options, she turned to my mother's money. When that wasn't enough, she tried to take the whole estate. She was facing serious charges. Even if she got a plea deal, she was looking at years in prison. But in the end, that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was looking at the woman who had once been part of my family and realizing she would never change. She wasn't sorry for what she had done. She was sorry she got caught. In the end, the court ruled in our favor. My brother and I kept the house, the accounts, everything. Rachel was convicted of multiple counts of fraud and was sentenced to prison. I never saw her again after that. And honestly, I didn't want to. Losing my mom was already one of the hardest things I had ever gone through. But losing Rachel, realizing she had never really been family at all, was a different kind of pain. I don't know if she ever truly regretted what she did. I don't know if she ever thought about the people she hurt. But I do know one thing. Money makes people do terrible things. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. The end.